since like
The storm
2 o'clock last
last
night.
Oh, no, I mean like this, with just now.
Oh,
The stream.
We've had a hard time connecting since the beginning of the board meeting to internet, so I think it's probably been an ongoing issue.
Looks like we're back, Doug, if you just want to say sorry.
Okay, so we're back?
It looks like we're back.
Okay, how much did I miss? Do I have to, or
I
did
can say so, yeah, sorry about that. Just from the beginning of you saying the meeting with the Gilbert representatives.
Okay, so Melanie and I met with Greg and Holly. And as I said, she does not have the authority, nor should she, to speak for the entire Gilbert School Corp Board. I relayed to her and to Greg the concerns of our board that the Gilbert School Corp feel in some way responsible for helping us out should a budget cut occur, either at the selectman level or the town level. And I did not hear anything from either one of them that would make me believe that they're not going to be cooperative in that effort. I did not ask them to commit to it because I don't think they can unilaterally commit to that without referring to their respective boards. However, I think it was a positive and a constructive conversation, and as I said, I don't think there's any reason for us to walk away from our meeting tonight feeling like the Gilbert is adamantly not going to help us out with a budget cut should that happen. Would you agree with that summation?
I absolutely would agree.
Okay. Again, I'm concerned that I think this is not pursuing the budgetary process in the way it should be, but the request was made, I had the conversation, we had the conversation, and that was basically the outcome. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the history that has brought us to this juncture. I've been on the board since 2015, and during that time, you could characterize relations between our board and the Gilbert School Board in various ways. Sometimes it's been resentful, there's been grievance, sometimes there's been hostility. And the root of a lot of that has always been the concern that the governance of the Gilbert School does not reflect a proportional representation of us, the Winchester Board of Education, because we represent the majority of the students and the vast majority of the funding. Perfectly understandable. I can understand why people all around town feel that way, and it's certainly a legitimate concern. And during my early years on the board, I will tell you that in working with Melanie and Bob Geiger and our mayor at the time, we talked about and at times pursued various remedies for that. Could we build a new school? Well, it's unlikely that the state's going to fund a new school for us right now, let's be real, especially since a $50 million school, what would have cost us $50 million a year ago would probably cost $70 million today. We talked about legislative relief, and I believe that there has been submissions, and Cheryl helped me out here. I don't know where that stands, but there has been something submitted to the legislature by our town selectmen.
It's in committee still.
Okay, it's in committee. And then we've talked at times about perhaps some legal recourse. Could we sue the Gilbert School Corp? Because we don't think that they should have the authority to control our budget to the degree they do. Melanie had conversations with our attorney, and frankly, the possibility of prevailing in that would be bleak and it would be expensive. So we have never actually pursued that. So where does that leave us? What I hope to do tonight when we start under our discussion of possible action items is to begin a process where we can define as a board what our aspirations and our expectations for the Gilbert School are, and that we do this in a very positive way. Melanie signs a check every month to the Gilbert School Corp, but she does not sign away our responsibility. We still have the responsibility for ensuring that our 7th through 12th graders get a quality education. And there should be no free passes on that. We should be able to talk to the Gilbert School Corp and say, this is what we think should be happening. Again, I'm mindful that we do not have the final authority. They are the final authority at the Gilbert School. But that does not mean they are our adversaries. What I want to do tonight is I want to begin a process where we begin to think of them as our partners, because I think at the end of the day, that's the constructive relationship that should exist. Now there remains financial issues. Right now we have a budget before us, and we're going to have to deal with that budget tonight. Unfortunately, there are certain items in that budget that people on this board object to, understandably. I can see that. I'm regretful that we didn't begin all of this a little bit sooner, that we didn't have a little bit more insight into the board to address those issues earlier, but that leaves us in a little bit of a predicament tonight. So, going forward, you know, this is something we're going to have to talk about under the budget, so I don't want to get involved in that too much at the moment, but obviously it's an important point. I talked about wanting to be partners. In order to have a successful partnership, we have to have trust, and that goes two ways. We have to trust them, they have to trust us. What I'm hoping is that we can have a relationship that respects our two authorities, us in our school district and theirs, but we also make clear that there are expectations. Those expectations could and should include being able to understand their budget and have visibility into it, and I think overall Greg did a very good job, certainly much better than done in the past, but we perhaps need a little bit more opportunity to have insight into that and give comments so there's feedback. And I'm trying to think of a way that we can do this in a positive way at this juncture in terms of the budget. We can talk about that a little bit later, but one of the things that I want to present tonight, or propose tonight, I think it was Renee who said, I'd like to see some presence from the Gilbert School Corp at our meetings, because don't they owe us that they come here and talk a little bit about what's going on in their program. I've spoken to both Holly and Greg about that, and they're both more than willing to come to our meetings. What I propose is that we ask them to come on a quarterly basis, and that prior to their appearance, hopefully at our meeting prior to that, or the one a month prior, that if you, as board members, have specific concerns or areas that you'd like to see addressed in a presentation by the Gilbert administration, that you relay those to me, and I will give them to the Gilbert School Corp, so that they can come here prepared to address any issues or concerns you have. And hopefully we can keep a dialogue going from there. So Melanie and I have talked about the possibility of having a retreat that is held between the two boards to talk about expectations and aspirations for the school. I think that's a good idea. I would support it with a good facilitator to keep us on track. But I don't want this to be a one-and-done process. I want it to be the beginning of a better dialogue between the two boards. And again, once again, I want it to be the beginning of a partnership. I don't want adversaries. I want partners in this deal. Does that mean they have to do things that we might need to ask them to do a little bit more? Absolutely. But let's be respectful and work towards that, and let's try to be positive. So, sorry if that's a little preachy. I really preach, but that was my one shot. I wanted to say that and get it out there. And that would be all I have to say at that point. Correspondence to the board.
Yes, we have 2 retirement letters, and I'd ask the board to please accept them with regret. One is for 6th grade teacher Joel Nelson, who's been with us for 20 years. He's retiring. And the other is for one of our kitchen workers, Karen McGreen. She is going to be retiring also after many years. And we have 2 letters of resignation, one from a paraprofessional, Monica Carlos White, and one of our teachers is moving, our kindergarten teacher is moving to Florida to be closer to her husband and her family. So she's going to be departing with us, and we'd accept that one with regret also, if possible.
Is that at the end of the year, or?
At the end of the school year, yes. It was nice that she gave us plenty of notice to be able to post also.
Just a question. What's the difference between a retirement and a resignation?
So retirement means they are truly going to accept retirement benefits. And then the resignation is they're probably going on to additional employment or other employment.
Doesn't have anything to do with the timing.
No, not at this time.
I'll make a motion to accept with regret.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
And I just want to say, when I told my sons that Mr. Nelson is retiring, they said, "Oh, no." So you got that from 2 teenagers.
Yeah, he is
I
definitely,
had Mr. Nelson too.
he is definitely beloved.
He was my 5th grade teacher. Actually had him on the day of 9/11. He was in his class.
No way. Wow.
well,
That's some memories, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
Superintendent's report, do you want to begin with the material prepared for us
Yeah,
this evening?
so let me go to my computer so that I can project this for the audience too. Sorry, guys, you don't get to look at the pretty pictures anymore. Oops, I got my password in there, guys. Cute kids. All right, so let me get this a little larger for you so you can see it there. So when we were at the meeting last week, which was our budget meeting, twofold, we had some board members request some additional information regarding special education funding and kind of where we were at, and then we also had a request from Holly Cassidy at the Gilbert School regarding kind of their portion that special ed is covered. So Nancy's been out of town, as you know, she's still out of town today, but I wanted to share the information as best I could with you tonight. So on your sheet in front of you, and posted here, what we have is the Director of Pupil Services, which is Seamus, primarily serving our program, but still serving pre-K all the way to grade 22. So we've put him under the WPS full-time status. The Assistant Director, however, is primarily at the Gilbert School serving 7-12, so she is under the Gilbert School.
Could you
in
break that
Gilbert
down
District.
with names, just for the admins?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we have Seamus.
Yep.
Calling in for WPS as the director.
Yep.
Cassandra Murphy is
Yep.
the Assistant Director of Pupil Services, and
Yep.
she's housed at the Gilbert School and oversees the day-to-day special ed there. Marie Miska is the executive assistant that is at Gilbert School for Special Services. Seamus is operations manager, which is kind of a secretary financial position for him, is housed at central office. We have an occupational therapist that serves the district as a whole, which also serves the Gilbert School, but primarily serves the whole district. So a portion of her could go over here theoretically. We have 8 certified staff members, so those are all 8 certified special education teachers that are at the Gilbert School, and a social worker. And we have social workers and special education staff at the age 3 to 22. Anyone else I'm missing? And speech and language, excuse me, that serve. And then we have 9 paraprofessionals that serve the Gilbert School right now, and I see Nancy has forgotten. So we have, I believe, 34 in the budget, 34 minus 9, you're looking at roughly 25 that serve our side, WPS. So this number is actually not accurate right here, that 22.
Should be 25.
It should, no,
No.
it should be plus,
47?
Should be 34?
yeah.
34?
Yeah.
37. So I'm gonna change that, guys.
should be 37.
22 and 25 is 47. Am I missing something?
9?
No, so what we're missing is right here. So we're missing 35 minus 9, or 34 minus 9 is 25.
Yeah.
So it should be a 20, oh, I don't have the ability to
That's okay.
enter in here, sorry, oh, hold on, 25, there we go. So that should be 47 total, so I apologize for that.
Does that change any of the other figures?
It does change this number right here. I can give you a roundabout number, if someone tosses me a calculator, I'll be able to give you a ballpark figure, I apologize.
Would it be possible to forward to the board a corrected sheet at some point?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a ballpark right now, and Holly, I'll get you a corrected sheet too.
It doesn't look like it's off that much based on the number.
Oh, no, it's definitely off.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe
for
so.
sure, yeah. Wages and
Unless she
benefits.
forgot, so 25, so a normal paraprofessional costs about $25,000 for salary. So I'm taking 25 times 25,000 right now, that's the number I'm doing.
625,000.
So it should be 625,000. So let's hope this. So she doesn't have these calculated correctly in here. I'm gonna give you an updated sheet. Again, guys, I'm so sorry, I
Okay.
apologize. So there should be around 625,000 in there unless I'm missing something, but our numbers are typically for the district, we have 34 paraprofessionals, so that looks accurate to me. And I believe if we look at our budget book, that's also what we've budgeted for this upcoming school year.
Elena, can I just ask you, so for certified staff, you're saying that there's 8 full-time special eds
So
teachers?
there's social
at-
workers that are in that number, and there's
Okay.
special education staff that are in that number. So I believe
And then
it's
there's
7
19
special
for-
education teachers and 1.
6 special ed, 1 speech and language, 1 social worker, totaling 8.
Okay.
Okay, and then there's 19 for the entire district,
Yes.
okay. Including Gilbert,
So.
No, not including, that's
not
separate.
including Gilbert.
Not including.
No.
Okay.
If it says
Well,
3 to
3 to
22, that
22.
would be Gilbert as well, right?
where are you
That's
at?
not how I understood it.
Well, if you're under full-time equivalent, it
says
says
WPS
TGS
age
grades 7 to
3 to
12, and then it says WPS age 3 to 22. Does that mean that that number includes Gilbert?
No, so
It's
they're
in addition to
separated
Gilbert.
out side to side.
Okay, so
And then-
3 to 22, even though we don't have anybody older than 12 or 13 in our school, I'm confused by that.
Because we still are responsible for the 18 to 22's out-of-district special education costs.
Got it,
So kids that are in transitional programming.
got it.
About 35, about 34 social workers.
It's about what it shows.
According to the budget.
Got it. So I'll adjust these numbers. Bottom line is, I'll kind of walk you through these here. So what you're seeing is up here, kind of the salary ranges for each one of those spending areas. You see here the totals that right now in terms of staffing, it's costing about 776,000. I think that's an underestimation based upon the ad of those paraprofessionals here on the WPS side. So, and then the benefits associated with those. So when you add up between salary, benefits, professional services, this is kind of what you get right here for the Gilbert School, which is special ed for 7 to 12, costing about just over $1 million. And then when you look at the total cost of special education, you're looking at around 4.4 for here, with a total between the two of them at around.
Is that not right? That's not right.
Carry over.
Guys, I apologize. These numbers, so my understanding is when I did the calculations, it was gonna be around 4.8 total. So when you look at the total wages here on this column here, yeah, she totaled it going across. But I'm not sure why those are not matching up that way.
You double click and expose the formula. See what it's highlighting?
It's highlighting H15.
Age 29.
Age 29, so it's right here.
Yeah, the transportation's wrong too.
Oh,
Well, now that
I'm sorry.
218 is probably what they consider for special education transportation maybe, and is the 7, is that total in transportation costs?
So
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
We have no idea.
guys, again, she is not here, so I did not get a chance to go over this with her. So this is hard for me to pull together with her. So transportation,
She doesn't want to work during vacation. And just send it in.
I know, but it's hard when the board requests something and I'm trying to get it in a timely fashion and she is on vacation. It's not the easiest thing to obtain. So under transportation here, there's 753,000.
Mel, what's the function on that one? Is it just typed in at 218, or is it,
It's typed in.
Huh.
So, let me ask you this. Once I get these numbers clarified, will this information be helpful to you, and is there any other information that you need?
I just have one question. Are there no out-of-district placements 7 through 12? Is that
Oh, no,
what
there definitely are.
So can you break that number out? Is that?
Yeah, I actually think, Holly, if you look, let me see the budget book real quick. Seamus, do you have it right there? I think we have it broken out in the budget book, but let me make sure.
It's fine, we can circle back. You know, just.
The numbers are correct, 753 didn't occur. So I'm gonna need some
Time,
clar-
we need
I
some
don't-
time. That's okay. We just need some time.
Yeah, I think maybe we should table this until we get all the numbers, because it's too
Nothing under-
confusing for everyone right now, and frustrating for you.
So Holly, if you, can I come back, do you mind? In the budget book on page 26, it's broken down like middle school and high school for out-of-district placements. So there's 7 to 8, and then there's what we're projecting for next year that we're setting. Thank you. Yep. So let me just ask, is there any other information here that you guys are missing? I'm gonna literally type it in here and be able to get this taken care of. And I apologize, guys. I
So the
apologize.
services are being provided by WPS at Gilbert, though, right? That separate line
Yes.
item? Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. So WPS provides special education from age 3 all the way to 22, regardless of where the child is located. Even if they're in a magnet school or a charter school, Seamus still has the responsibility to oversee them. And we have the responsibility of what's called implementing the IEP.
So the figures in the first, the center column, the appropriated budget column.
Are you in the budget book or are you on?
No, I'm
Sarah?
talking on this. If you take those figures, we've got over 5 million in special ed costs in district and out of district. Is that fair to say?
Schooling.
If you go to the bottom line,
Yeah, you add.
One
So,
plus four.
guys, this, honestly, I don't understand how this chart has these numbers in it right now. When I'm looking deeper into this, I wanna have this redone in a way that is concrete and not.
Then I'd make a motion to table this until we have accurate information.
And what I'll do, Cheryl, is I'll work with Nancy as soon as she's back, and I'm gonna walk through this table, and we're gonna get concrete numbers that add up and are accurate. 'Cause I can't stand on these numbers right now.
Thank you though for trying, appreciate it.
So, I apologize for that.
We'll pick this up next month.
I should be able to have that to you by the end of the week. I will email it. Holly, I will email you an updated version of that. It will get handled tomorrow.
so we had a motion, Cheryl and Doc seconded, we have to vote on that.
Well, it wasn't really an action item, so
Oh,
I don't think I appreciate the sense of it, but it's, you know,
Whatever.
yeah.
Okay.
So moving on to the rest of your report.
Okay. All right. So on the March Superintendent's Report, instruction in all buildings, students participated in friendliness and kindness celebrations for Valentine's Day. We are working currently on our ESY summer school programming. Student recommendations and staffing schedules are currently underway. We have completed all mid-year evaluations for certified staff. Our music teachers are working on March and April concerts at all school buildings, so nice to be able to see them coming back. We are in the process of having discussions of staff placements for the 22-23 school year. We've held first and second round interviews for elementary teacher positions for the 22-23 school year. We've held student recognition ceremonies at all 3 school buildings to recognize students' mid-year performance. Building schedules for the 22-23 school year are now complete. Our team worked on that last week. I met with Iris White and Greg Dresko from the State Department of Education to conduct our mid-year review of our Alliance program. The Pearson Players Drama Club held their show, The Wizard of Oz, performance this past Friday and Saturday. I want to thank the Gilbert School for your hospitality and having us there. That performance was nothing short of amazing. On Monday, March 7th, the district participated in Drop Everything and Read, and that's something that's going on throughout the course of this week. And then walkthrough observations of teachers and special education staff took place, and detailed feedback was provided this past Monday. Under operations, there's ongoing monitoring of the Hinsdale project, twice weekly walkthroughs, bi-weekly meetings, and monthly Hinsdale School Renovation Committee. We are on track right now, both budgetarily and timeline. I worked with Ms. Passini to set up our parent-teacher conferences for March in pick a time, so parents will be getting those invites tomorrow. Met with the town manager and the Connecticut Green Bank to discuss solar options for Hinsdale and Pearson schools. Held custodial interviews, and we've selected 2 candidates. Executive secretary negotiations have concluded, and final proposals will go to the Board of Ed in April. We've met with our moving company to plan the move and the packing for Hinsdale. That's underway. I attended a 3-hour resilience meeting with the town of Winchester with about 20 other leadership members this past week. So it's basically a safety response plan. So they identified some of the top 3 concerns in the town, this team, and now the team has to go back with the town manager and be able to identify solutions for the top 3 concerns. One of those concerns was obviously roads and the conditions of them around here. So the other was, I believe, having like a place of refuse. Should there like be a long-term power outage? Like, do we have a place that would be sufficient to be able to serve as like a designated shelter? Stuff like that. So, and then, I'm sorry?
Do we?
That's why it's on the list to address. So there's a plan around that. Hinsdale, though, will be outfitted with a generator that will have some capabilities, not to serve to the level of like a shelter, but it could serve on a short-term basis. Leadership, I spoke at the State Board of Education meeting on behalf of the Explorations Charter School and their renewal application. Attended the Pullman and Comley Labor Relations Part 3 seminar. Continue to attend Litchfield County Superintendent's Committee. Participate in the bi-weekly DPH meetings focused on the transition from COVID-19 to a respiratory illness protocol. Met with members of the Gilbert School Corp to discuss the budget with Mr. Fenninger. Met with 2 WPS members to discuss financial questions related to TGS and kind of how that all lays out. Participated in bi-weekly legislative committee meetings through CAPS. Held a meeting with Explorations, Gilbert School, and WPS to ensure that we had the same COVID-19 strategies and protocols since the 28th, and then participated in the Connecticut Special Education, it's called CT SEDS, which will be the new IEP kind of process that we go into for next year. It was an informational session for superintendents. So upcoming events we have in March, pre-K and K registrations for the 22-23 school year. On March 9th, we will host the State Department of Education for walkthroughs at the bachelor's school. On the 15th, we will have pre-K to grade 2 staff being able to go to Hinsdale and tour for the first time. Today, we did a presentation at the bachelor's school and answered any questions or answers that the teachers had regarding the new building. Shared with them a lot of updated photos and the plans and what the playgrounds are set to look like and all of that. And I think the teachers really appreciated being able to see where they're going to be going. I also agreed to be able to share that information with the kids so that we can start to build that excitement rather than anxiety around the building move. We want them to be excited about their future space. And then on the 16th, we have a virtual PTO meeting. We have also on the 16th to the 18th, we have parent-teacher conferences where there'll be half days planned on those days. And then the 22nd, we have our Board of Ed committee meetings.
Has there been a date set for like a walkthrough of Hinsdale for us?
Not yet. You're
Not
going
yet?
to be next.
Okay.
I anticipate you guys will be that last week in March.
Okay.
Longer we wait, the better it gets.
It does get better and better every day.
The warmer it gets.
Yeah.
True,
Maybe
and a little
drier.
less muddy. Seamus and I were there this evening, it got a little muddy. All right, so if we look at our enrollment data, right now on the next page, we have our enrollment as of March 1st at 569 students in pre-K to grade 6. Our enrollment changes and grows constantly, so our special education enrollment has decreased since the beginning of the school year. In-district special ed has held steady. Our out-of-district placements have decreased by 1. Our magnet, VOAG, and charter enrollment has decreased by 1. Our 603 placements have decreased by 2, which that's a savings to us typically. And then our Nexus students, we have 16 of them right now. One thing I do want to point out around special education, Seamus had done some number crunching around this last week, and we talk about sometimes when students come into the school district, whether they're at the elementary age, middle, or high school age, if they enroll and move into our town, but they've already been placed out of district prior to us getting them, we have an obligation to pretty much continue that out-of-district placement. So I'm not sure how many students this represents. Do you remember? Was it 14? No.
It was 7 students and then 2 students expelled students as well.
Okay. So we have 2 expelled students and 7 out-of-district students that have moved to us within the last 2 years, already in out-of-district placements. The cost of that has been roughly $850,000. So I just want to give you the scope of how much it costs sometimes when people move into the district and they are already outplaced. Like, it's an expensive endeavor. And the same thing like when we have to go through an expulsion. So we've had 2 students that were expelled in 2 different locations, one in one school and one in another school. And that adds exponentially to costs when we have to take on that. But it's, it's expensive. So I just want you to understand the gravity of how much impact just one change can have on the district budget.
Are there ever opportunities to review those outplacements and see if we can accommodate the needs of those children within the district?
Yeah, Seamus, would you be able to go to Dr. Dutton's mic and be able to speak on that, please?
Sure. So every student has to go through the PPT process when a situation like this happens. So we will go to the PPT process and we'll determine whether or not we can program for that student in district. There have been times where we have been able to bring students back to district because we have programming in the buildings for those students. Normally, if the students are out of district for, I would say, for an extended period of time, it's harder to get those students back into district. Not only for the quality of education that they're going to get, but also the transition that they're going to get as well too. Some of the students are in high school. If I bring them back, there's credit requirements. There's a lot of different things that we take into consideration, but every single one of them has to be a PPT decision. So I don't get to unilaterally decide who stays and who goes. It's the team making a decision on what's in the best interest of the student.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Seamus.
I have a question about the expulsions. So, do we have to outplace, like, how does that work with Gilbert? Like, do they expel and then we take on that expulsion? Like,
So
how does
that's
that-
called a nexus situation.
Okay.
So if it's special education student that gets expelled, we have a nexus responsibility to pay for that. But the expulsion process goes through the Gilbert School Corporation or whoever they have holding their hearings. And then Seamus meets as part of the special education process, and we put usually, some recommendations out there around appropriate placements for that child.
Expulsions are usually short-term though, depending on what the expulsion is. So those students will then be working to get them back into district as soon as the expulsion period is over, whatever the expulsion committee decided upon. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year. It's usually pending negotiations around that. So
Yeah.
those students that have now gone out will be returning back to their respective schools when their expulsion period is up.
And then I am so happy to report that our attendance data, thank goodness, is starting to decrease. So just to kind of highlight, when we were in January and in the thick of things, we were seeing on average, our average daily attendance was in the high 80s, which normally for us on a normal non-COVID school year, we run about 97%, 98% on a daily basis for students. So we're starting to creep up. You can see February took a giant leap back into the 90s across the district. I would say we're even higher right now based upon what I see as our student absences, which is great. So I'm glad to see us moving back towards the mid-90s for our average daily attendance. And then, as you can see, we've cut our chronic absenteeism rate in half from January. So now that those students are more routinely in the school buildings, we're seeing that in half. And just to give you an idea, so right now, I'm saying it's good that we're seeing 22, 23, 22% there. Normally across the district, we run on average between 7 and 8% chronic absenteeism. So this is still really, really high, and we might not come down completely from that number because a lot of kids have exceeded already 18 absences this school year, and it's 10% of the school year whenever you are chronically absent.
Be interesting to see too Gilbert's numbers on these for part of the,
I'd probably say they're very similar to where we are at. I can't say that there's another school district that has fantastic numbers right now. I think we're all in a pickle in that area.
People are out long-term, like parents take their kids out long-term for this?
So, not typically. So in a typical year, you just have, your kids that are out, every once in a while, but with COVID, what we were seeing is that kids were out, anywhere between, 5 and 10 days of school. And, once you rack up 10 absences, once you hit 18 for the school year in total, you're automatically chronically absent for the school year. Under Gilbert enrollment, we have 416 students enrolled from Winchester. They have 16 international, 1 out of district, for a total of 433 students. And then on the next page, you can see the grade by grade breakdown. And going into the next part here, I just want to make sure I'm not jumping ahead of myself. Apologize. Okay. So looking at the appropriated budget detail. So right now, our projection for the end of the school year is that we will have $50,791 left at the end of the school year. That's the projection. So that's actually a pretty safe number for us. Barring any unforeseen situation, that's a solid number to stand on right now. Going into our grant funds. Pages are sticking together. You can see that we have a projected year-end balance of $2.2 million, but understand that still has the ESSER and the ARP funding in there, which we're going to discuss tonight. The Hinsdale Report includes some really nice pictures this time of what the inside of the school building is starting to shape up. So there's been no safety concerns noted on the site. The MEP, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, is still in progress. They're largely focused right now on the new section of the building, and we refer to that as Section A. The foundation has been poured on the west side of the brook for where the patio is going to be. Bathroom tiling is happening. Cabinets and finishes are being installed in the classrooms. The under slab work in the kitchen, which has to do a lot with piping, is happening. The roof installation is complete on Area C, which is the new section of the building. Area A is in progress, which is the middle section of the building, and then B will be started as soon as A is done. The masonry work is complete throughout the entire project, and the steel, if you're on the Dunkin' Donuts side of the building, the west side, you can see the steel structure of the curve of the building has been installed, and they're going to get ready to start framing that in coming up here very soon.
Are we going to get windows?
Windows are a little delayed right now. The good thing is we have windows, so I talked to them. More than likely, they'll be in over the summer. Worst case scenario, they'll replace them throughout the school year as they get installed. I know.
Oh, that's amazing, because at one point it was 2 or 3 months out, and now we're.
It's crazy.
Looking at summer?
Yeah. I know for my own house, we ordered 3 windows, and it's taken 6 months to get them in, and they're still not in. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
So looking at the pictures, I'll kind of explain what you're seeing. The picture on the bottom left is the brand-new cabinetry installation. You see the students all have their own individual mailboxes there, solid surface countertops. We did a dark color, like it's like a dark navy, so that way no one can scribble on it and it will not show any type of scribble. The floors are vibrant and exciting. They're patchwork floors, so the VCT tile that's in there is made into squares highlighted by the different colors throughout the building. The walls are painted in most of the classroom. On the next page, on 31, you can see the installation of the steel curve on the west end of the building. And in the bottom picture, what you're seeing is the fact that the hallways are now painted. So there's like a cream color on top. There's a navy blue color on the bottom. And where the navy blue is, that's where the students' miniature little lockers will be going down the hallway. So even preschoolers have little lockers in this situation, but they're little kid-sized lockers. They're not the big, tall lockers, so they're kind of cute. And then the other thing you can see is that the tile floor has been installed in the hallways, so they're protecting it right now by putting some covering on it, but it is installed. And when Seamus and I were in the building this evening, fighting through all of the mud, the one section, the other long hallway in the building was actually, they had put the leveler and some adhesive stuff on overnight tonight, and it was all cordoned off. We couldn't get down there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be at the meeting tonight. I would be stuck to that floor. And they were getting ready to finish the tiling tomorrow in that area there. So it's coming along nicely. The next update I have for you is under the Alliance District Grant. So during the budget meeting, you had heard me talk about the reauthorization of the Alliance Grant. So I wanted to provide the board with some additional information on this. So the program information for the Alliance District program was originally established to assist with academic improvement in the lowest 30 school districts. And at the time when Winchester was in the lowest 30 school districts in the state, and that was not that long ago. We're talking about the time period around receivership, so we're talking, 6-7 years ago. Currently, Winchester receives on average about $200,000 a year for this grant, and the purpose of those funds is largely to support academic intervention and any type of certified reading staff to be able to improve reading support. The legislation around Alliance District requires that every 5 years there's a reauthorization of the schools that are participating in the program. So this was our reauthorization year. So what has happened is we have quote unquote become a graduated status, meaning we are no longer part of the lowest 30 schools in the state, that we are now performing well above the majority of districts in the state because we're performing above the state average at this point. So we will be in the graduated status of Alliance groups for the next 5 years. So if you remember, with the Commissioners Network grant, there was an opportunity for us to absorb over time the programming that the Alliance funding had provided to us. So in the same vein that the Commissioners Network grant was, they're gonna wean us off of this support. The difference through this, and this is something that we will have to work through with the town, is the money is going, instead of coming through the Alliance grant directly to us, it's going to be funneled through ECS, so education cost sharing. Education cost sharing is the municipal side of educational funding. So the monies, the $200,000, are going to be now added to our ECS funding, which then we have to get through the town. So in the first year of fiscal year 23, next year, will be held harmless in all capacity. So the $200,000 will come through ECS at 100% funding from the SDE, from Alliance Reauthorization. In the second year, that's when the step down starts. So it'll be a 25-75 split. They're now going to support 75%, will be responsible for 25%. Then in the fiscal year 25, it'll be a 50-50 split. 26, it's going to be 25% the state, 75% Winchester. And then by fiscal year 27, it'll be entirely a local own of the funds. So that's kind of how the state weans you off, if you will, whenever you've been on a grant like that, to be able to ensure that you're bringing over the benefits that that funding has provided to you over time.
How do you think the town will pass those funds along to us? Would it be in our appropriated budget? Would it be in town supported for?
It should come directly out of the ECS funding as a revenue source. So in our budget, the town gets a check called educational cost sharing.
Right.
So it should be in that check that the town receives, and then the town then puts that into our budget.
Our appropriated budget,
Yes,
which inflates our appropriated budget then.
which inflates our MBR. However, the MBR, we are held harmless on through the year fiscal year 2027.
Okay, but just speaking politically, if there's $200,000 more in the appropriated budget, the townspeople are gonna look at it and see our budget went up by $200,000.
Our budget did not, our revenue went up. There's a difference.
Well, I'm looking at the appropriated budget from the town to the school.
An uninformed eye would be able to assume that it's an extra $200,000.
That's
It
what
is
I'm worried-
not.
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, it is not though. It is simply placed in a different spot than what it had been in the past.
I understand that, it's just a pass-through.
We need to message
Which is
it.
a perceptual issue.
Yes,
It's a transparency.
yeah,
Just
we'll need to
Message
message.
and educate.
Yeah, so it's not like, it's not an additional funding source. It's just coming through a different avenue than what it's typically came in the past.
Why do they do it through the town that way?
It was, I don't know the answer to that. It was just part of how the legislation was written for reauthorization.
Does that mean the town can pinch from it?
Yes,
Because if it was an MBR, they couldn't touch it.
correct.
So ECS, they can
Yes.
pillage from it.
Yes.
So they wouldn't still owe it to us?
No, they could take it if they wanted it.
They could use it for roads or whatever they want.
We would have an argument, though, with the Board of Selectmen on that. Other towns have actually sued their Board of Selectmen around that same situation, and they've won.
They did it that way. It's curious.
I know.
That doesn't seem right.
So I think, it's we have a meeting with
Josh.
Josh and that on Thursday. I think it's going to be an important conversation to begin to have with him, to have he and the finance person understand that these funds will be coming in, but they're coming in just differently than what they have been.
So just to clarify, if, in year 2027, if the town keeps the funding for us, that's increasing the MBR.
So in 2027, we will be responsible for the alliance portion if we choose to continue those positions or those supports.
Which would increase our MBR, which is something,
If that's where the line, if it went, depending on if it went to town support or if it went to education, the appropriated line.
okay.
Yes. Any questions on that?
Okay, so it means the held harmless to 2027. If we wanted to continue those services, it could affect the MBR.
Yes, but we're held harmless on the MBR until 2027.
Okay.
Yes,
So we have specific things that we fund with that money, right?
yes.
Do you intend to keep funding those at the same level? Or as that money goes down, are those things that can decrease over time?
The hope is that we decrease them over time. Some of them we won't be able to. I want to say, I'm looking to see where our staffing is. So right now, for instance, we have 1.9 of our remedial reading certified teachers coming from that grant. And those are two critical individuals. We also have one of our instructional coaches coming from the Alliance grant. And and then there's some services, but those are the staff members right now associated with the Alliance grant.
All right.
Right. I want to ask a question about the Hinsdale, and I don't know if this is this point that we should ask, but it was our name came up in the paper today. Is this an appropriate time to ask the question?
Yeah,
whether the
absolutely.
state has contacted us regarding?
We've
Can you just speak
received,
up a little louder? I'm having trouble hearing, I know she can't hear you behind you.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we were in the paper today, and our school was specifically mentioned. So have we been notified by the state in regards to the audit?
not a single
That they're
thing.
doing. Nothing.
We welcome an audit.
Yeah.
We've followed all the processes and procedures that the state had set forth.
Right.
To
No, I
date,
don't- it's
we've
not on our
had,
end, it's
no,
on
we've
their
had
end,
no indication of any type of
because Torrington High School. too,
information,
they
you know,
mentioned.
that's not appropriate or anything like that.
But the state has not contacted us yet.
No, the state has not contacted us in any
Wow.
capacity.
That's interesting.
Nope.
That would make it to the paper, but we have
No notification as
no
of yet,
notification.
Not a single
Wonder
thing.
where they got that information then.
so.
Yeah.
Who
Okay.
calculates the reimbursement rate?
No, that's back on
DAS?
the.
I believe it's the Office of DAS, but I think it's a formula that's used based upon your economic level in the state. You know how like they rank order the 169 towns based upon economic stability and taxes and income level? It's based upon that rank order. The higher you are in income level and like lower poverty levels, the lower your reimbursement rate is essentially. The higher you are in terms of low income, high poverty, the higher your reimbursement rate is.
And yet Hartford was potentially on the hook for $16 million.
Hartford is,
Yeah.
yeah, and Torrington possibly,
Yeah,
for 160.
That's a big miscalculation.
It sounds to me like they're holding districts harmless, though, that if
Yeah,
you
they
were provided the wrong reimbursement rate, that you would be held harmless, is what I'm hearing.
That's what Lamont was talking about.
Yeah.
But as we've already talked about, just a little glitch in the budget can throw us completely off,
Absolutely.
so.
But I can confirm we have not received any communication from the state at all on that.
Crazy.
That's fun.
It's fun. It's always fun.
And you know, the odd thing about it is when a few of us went to Hartford and we met with Costa, who you've all probably heard his name many times, he was a real take-charge guy. He said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to knock down this end of the building. We're going to build you a building over there. And we just kind of sat there and said, wow, this guy's really got it together. Let's do it. And, yeah, here we are.
Where is he?
Yeah, where is he? Exactly. I think
So,
he resigned and took his retirement the same day.
yeah.
Bill, could I ask quickly about a couple things on your report?
Of course.
Okay. The building schedules for 22-23 school year, I'm assuming, is that like move-in and things, or are you talking about like
Classes.
public uses? Oh, okay.
No, so we're talking about literally like the time of day kids have reading, when
Okay.
they have
Got it.
specials, the length of those classes, all of that. So literally their class schedules.
Will the facilities at Hinsdale be open to use, like Pearson's gym and things like that?
We will have a facility use program just the same as we do at Pearson and Bachelor right now.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know in other years, when teachers are moving from one location to another, their stuff wasn't always moved. So, you know, I know that teachers have brought their own vehicles and had friends with trucks and things to move their personal effects out of the room. Is everything being packed and moved, or is it just the furniture and all that?
So your personal effects are not permitted to come to Hinsdale. So like if you have a special refrigerator, that is not coming to Hinsdale because we're not paying
No,
extra
I mean,
for.
their decorations, their books, their.
Oh, so your instructional materials, like that you use for your classroom, everybody is getting boxes and bins right now that are being supplied for them. They're packing their materials and the moving company will be moving all of that.
Okay, good.
So, you know, the only thing that someone should be moving that is of their own would be like if you have like picture frames or like, a plant that you want to move, like those types of things. All the instructional stuff gets moved by the company.
Thank you.
That's it?
I think so.
Okay. Any other questions for Melanie on her report? All right, it's 10 after 8. We still got a little ways to go, but I want to touch on two things. Last time we were together, I mentioned that I wanted to begin the conversation about our expectations and aspirations for Gilbert, and I asked you all to think about some topics you'd like us to look at. Nora, I know you've got quite a laundry list of things that you were concerned about, curriculum-wise and test score, et cetera, So do you want to kind of kick that off and talk to us a little bit about some of the concerns you have?
I was just looking at, hold on a second, for discussion, expectations. Okay, so we're at number 11.
11, yes.
Okay, so some of the items I had put down in a document to share with all of you. And if you all give me a moment, I can take a look at some of those because I don't have them right here at my fingertips. Some of the items that, in terms of while I'm waiting, some of them was like AP scores, AP, not just enrollment, but AP scores.
AP.
Advanced placement
Okay.
scores. Numbers of students in classes, class sizes. Maybe we were talking about these monthly reports, SAT reports, performance that are taken in March. Discussions of what are called CIPs, or improvement plans, school improvement plans that would be drafted by the board in conjunction with the administration that would set up some targets. And so report outs on those plans in progress towards those targets. Sometimes teachers get evaluated and we get a sense, at least there's a report that goes to the state of Connecticut about where the school is for teachers that have met or exceeded expectations. We can get a sense of that. The state report.
So the things you're talking about, at least a few of them, are really conveying to this board information from the Gilbert School. So, for instance, SATs, staff evaluations, AP scores. Do you, and I think that's been done in the past, and we can certainly continue to do that. I think that's good information to have. What do you think that this board should convey to Gilbert in terms of what we think is realistic for the school to achieve? I mean, because that has to be talked about in context in terms of the students that go to Gilbert from here, the programs that are available at Gilbert, the DIRG, it's a terrible word, but it's there. You know, we all talk about the DIRG. Do you feel the need to have a conversation in the context of those things, or do you want to just say this is the number and we think it should be higher? I mean,
No, I'm thinking just report outs to let us know what the plans are, the SAT practice plans, just to give us a sense that things are moving forward.
I think the
we've
school
identified
improvement plan would probably
Right.
address like what they're doing to
Okay,
do
that's
better,
good,
right?
yeah.
To try
Right.
to do better.
Right.
So the objective information could be fed into something that is a plan for improvement.
Right, and then they're just
Okay.
reporting it out to us on, they would set the goals. I mean, that's ideal, that the school themselves sets the goals. Because I don't think we've seen plans before. It'd be nice to see those plans. And then progress on those goals.
Also, I believe that they're up for accreditation this year
Right.
and going through NEASC, so maybe just like report out on how that's going, or
You see, NEASC is also self-reporting too. They've
It's next
changed their
it's
standards.
next year, never mind, sorry, it's next
Yeah,
year.
but it's a really insightful document and process. And what it does is it requires now that a school identify its own issues and top 3 concerns, and then target a plan for dealing with those top 3 concerns. And so there's a lot of reports written out of self-reflection and targeted goals and prioritization of those goals and the plans. And that's almost like your CIP, your
Yeah.
school improvement plan.
Absolutely.
And then the NEAS people come out, help work through it with you in pretty timed sequence. And then there's reports that you're supposed to report back to in 5 years after. So that itself would be an informative, interesting process to be aware of.
So visibility into that kind of a process is important. Do we, the other part of it, of course, is the students that come from the 6th grade that go into the 7th grade.
Right.
That's
So,
always a big transition issue. Are we
Yeah.
preparing the students? Is there an issue where our students are performing well and then not performing as well as we think they should, or are they unprepared to,
Yeah.
for the curriculum at the 7th grade?
I think they might want to consider seeing what we do with our gifted and talented program, because I remember we talked
Oh,
a
we
little
did
bit
talk
about
about
that,
that.
and then it kind of like, I guess
Yep.
it's not,
6th
they
and
don't really
7th, they
do
go.
that in the
Right.
7th and 8th grade, is that
I mean,
right
7th
at
and 8th,
Gilbert?
yeah,
Or-
I think so.
okay.
Do we do open houses anymore, where 6th graders come into 7?
Yeah,
still do? In
Mrs.
the
Silverio
spring?
actually has a comprehensive
Yeah.
plan that she has just recently shared with Mr. Shagru. Ms. Silverio, do you want to speak about the 6th to 7th grade transition, if you want to come up to Dr. Dutton's mic?
Yeah, so what I've recently proposed to Mr. Shagru is what we typically do to help our students prepare for moving from 6th grade to 7th grade and making sure we have a smooth transition. So I outlined steps that we've done pre-COVID and the steps that we could start to consider, coming back to in terms of having the 6th grade. What has happened in the past was the 6th graders had a visit to the Gilbert School, and the principal at the time would speak to them, have a town meeting, and kind of orient them to the Gilbert School in that way. We have typically sent our special education students to Gilbert for a specialized visit with the special education case managers to kind of help them transition, and they take a tour and have their questions answered. What we typically do is set up a series of meetings. One meeting with the 6th and 7th grade gen ed teachers in terms of our teachers sharing our curriculum. I did propose that this year we share student writing samples and just sort of portfolio information, our pacing calendars, and answer any questions about pacing or curriculum review, things that we didn't get to for whatever reason. So our gen ed teachers have curricular conversation, and they also discuss, particular concerns or interventions that have been in place. We outline the students that are receiving reading and math interventions, the students that are receiving behavioral interventions, and kind of go through those interventions in the plans. Our counselors meet typically individually to share specific information about more social emotional concerns that are a little bit more private, so that the counselors can have a private conversation about those concerns. We typically create a list of students recommended for honors math. Our top 20 performing students, we triangulate our data between NWEA, our unit math assessments, and our scores within the classroom, and make a recommendation for students for honors math classes. We do outline our students that are in the TAG program and their strengths, and we would also then, I typically share grade level data. What we do is provide parents of 6th graders with an intent, letter of intent, and they tell us whether or not they intend to move or consider a different district that they might, like private school, or whether or not they intend to send their student to the Gilbert School. And with that, we get permission to share data, and once the school year we have all of our data accumulated, I typically share SBAC data, rank order NWEA data for reading and math, unit scores, our assessment spreadsheet. So I share that with administration so that they have all the scores. I think that That's everything we
I
do.
have one question.
Sure.
Do you have transitional PPTs?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We do a lot with PPTs. So we are trying, this year, we're trying to get all of our annuals because of COVID. We kind of fell back for a couple years on having all of our annuals. When we came back in person, we had all of our annual reviews in September. So we've had, for the past couple years, a lot of annual reviews in September. So we tried to bump those all up for our sixth graders into the spring. So we're having a lot of PPT meetings for that. And then we'll have quick transition meetings, PPTs with just involving parents, the Gilbert staff, and our special education case manager, and either Mr. Cullinan or Mrs. Murphy, kind of helping transition that way with just brief information, more so to orient the parent and answer some of their questions and get the teachers on the same page in terms of the needs of the students. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
I think that, you know, what Nora is getting at, she's looking at it with the eye of an educator, right? And we keep talking about collaboration, and these are the collaborative conversations we would have as teachers and educators around all of these things that you're talking about, Nora. So, you know, I think in the window of collaboration and transparency, having these conversations and data that Nora's requested, it lends to more of a, I don't know what the word is, partnership, right?
Thank you.
I have a question, though, regarding the Gilbert, and knowing that they're a private-public, and having, or public-private, no, Kristen? Quasi-private, public. Do they ever have to, I know, having worked in a private school for my career, she just killed you. Thank you. That our tuition never covered our expenses. We always had to do major fundraising. And I'm wondering, does Gilbert do any of that as their private part? Or is that
Actually,
a part? We used to have to do annual funds, we used to have to do alumni outreach, all kinds of
I
stuff
know the
like
sports teams raise money for some of their events and their travel trips and things like that. I don't know that, and the Gilbert, Holly, you want to help me out a little bit on this? Is it?
There's alumni gifts,
Is that part of
alumni
the
funds.
That's on the trust side, the trust reaches out to alumni. But the trust also provides endowment grants to the school that teachers can apply to every year. And we've given in the past help for band uniforms, 3D printers, what else? There's been, and you know, anything it comes and gets voted before the school board and the trustee board.
But they don't, do they do like capital campaigns or for large expenditures?
The trust side, that's all on the trust side, that's not the school board.
Okay, so do they cross over at all? Just the
No.
donations?
The enhancement grants.
Okay.
Also, National Junior Honor Society also raises money. All the clubs do.
All the clubs do.
Yeah,
Baseball players have to raise $500 per kid this year.
The individual classes for like prom and, you know, dues every year.
So it's like small, they wouldn't
It
go
is.
out and
It's not like
ask
parents
for-
are responsible for a certain amount every year, or,
No, not the parents so much. I'm just saying that when, for our private school, we would have to do, you know, just
Yeah.
a large fundraising every year to meet. And usually it was alumni and donations and that kind of thing.
yeah, no, because the trust through the international program pays the tuition for each of those students. So they're like a sending district, and we're a sending district, and we all do the same things. And so what the trust, you know, is able to or offers, the school is usually more, like she said, like things for individual, maybe teacher request or a sports team request, or, you know, something like that.
Smaller
So,
things.
yeah, so there isn't, I know what you're talking about, but
Yeah,
it's not like that.
okay.
But on that same topic, I'd have to say that if all had gone according to plan, when the trust instituted their international program, there'd be 100, 150 international students attending Gilbert School, which would obviously be subsidizing a portion of the overhead. And so, and I do believe that was an honest attempt on the part of the trust to lower the cost per pupil for Winchester. But geopolitics and other things have not been helpful to that.
So is that something that they're looking at to expand once again, or is that going to kind of go by this wayside and dwindle out?
There is one person who's dedicated to soliciting international students. You guys have,
Lovely town
is
of
there,
Winchester.
I don't know, Steve, you have any more up-to-date information on that? I know Tony used to be half dedicated to the Trust for International, right?
Oh, Tim?
I'm not following the question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There's a director for the
Yeah.
international
Yeah.
program that recruits,
Okay.
actively each of the agents recruits, attends fairs, whether virtually or in person and we've gotten students from other countries, so they are actively working on recruiting more students.
So they're looking to increase that program back
Yes.
to what it was?
Yep, and that's all paid for on the trust side.
Sure.
Yep.
I think the piece maybe that we might be missing that we're accustomed to here is, my understanding is that Gilbert does not actively go out and look for grants. They don't have a grant writer, they don't, or at least not very much, not as heavily as we do. And that, there could be a million reasons for it. Maybe some things aren't available or whatever, but I know that's a goal that we've talked about, like, hey, let's see if we, how can we improve that?
I have something else I wanted to add regarding like partnerships and collaboration. If we could get some more information on what Gilbert's doing with maybe, or if anything, with partnerships with local areas like Northwest Community College, Regional 7. Next year, they're going to be rolling out an opportunity for 9th through 12th graders to do remote learning. And they're saying that districts can work with other districts to provide different classes virtually. So, I'd like to see maybe some thought into what that might look like. And, I think that the more partnerships that, are developed between the schools can
Sounds
only
good.
help.
You see that happen in other, my daughter goes to school in New York, and she takes an advanced Spanish class remotely to another school. So it's definitely a cost-saving way, and a way to provide, opportunities to our students without incurring the full cost of a classroom, a small classroom.
I'd also like to know, like, other courses that are ECE accredited, so that way kids can get that dual enrollment course at Gilbert qualifies for a UConn course, because the syllabus has been accepted and audited by UConn.
What does ECE stand for?
Stands for Early College Experience. So if you teach, say, AP US History, the University of Connecticut could possibly give those kids credit for UConn, regardless of the performance on the AP exam, so long as they pass each semester with the 73% or better. But it doesn't mean the student has to go to UConn, but UConn will grant them the credit that could be transferable to about 86% of the college universities around the country. So, something of that sort of creative partnership piece.
Absolutely.
I don't know if they already do that.
Isn't that based on the test score?
No, it's a totally different program from the College Board AP exam.
Okay.
So there's other courses that UConn offers in the ECE program. There's something in the neighborhood probably of about 75 to 100 different courses at UConn. So if you went to Oliver Wilkett High School, you can really roll really well with college courses. But it doesn't have to be physically located there. It's your high school teacher's resume that goes forward and gets accepted by UConn, and then syllabus gets accepted. And so a teacher at Gilbert could be offering this to the high school student inside the Gilbert classroom, regardless of how they do on the AP exam.
And that results in college credit when they
Yeah.
enter.
It's a real tuition bill for $30 a credit. So if you take, say, US History, AP, or what have you, at say, Gilbert for the full year, you can get 6 college credits for $300. And that's transferable. There's chemistry, there's calculus, there's a whole myriad of different programming from ECE. There's also VHS, which is virtual high school, which can kind of offset inability to meet kids' needs sometimes if it doesn't fit in their schedule, if it's not in the program of studies. VHS is a possibility where kids take a course online, fits in when they take a study hall. That's part of the creative programming. So those would be things that I'd like to look at. Graduation rates, and I'd like to see, after kids graduate, where are they a year later?
Yeah, That's
You
an
know,
important
maybe
one.
guidance does reports on that sort of thing to let us know how they're doing.
Nor that, what you're talking about with the teacher would get the certification or authorization or whatever from UConn. What's involved in that?
Well, you need a master's in the subject area.
Yeah.
You need to send your resume, letters of recommendation, as if you're applying for a real job, as a teacher has to put all that together.
Okay.
And then that, the syllabus that you're offering has to be audited through the university. You become an adjunct professor through that application process,
Okay.
so it's
Yep.
not just anybody that can do it.
Right.
And then you go there every other year for PD as required by their program, to stay current. And each year you submit your syllabus and it gets adopted or rejected.
So
Sounds
is
like a
it,
nice resume builder for the student. teacher
Well,
as well.
it's a nice for
is
everybody.
it very expensive for the teacher to do?
No, it's free.
Oh, okay.
In fact, you get your little hat and you get your little lunch and you go, so.
Sounds like it's personal experience.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, the US offers 6 college credits. The honors, English there can offer 4 college credits. Most of them are 3 college credits. Some ECE courses require the high school administer their university final exam, like calculus, but some allow the teacher to create their own final exam. Depends on the discipline and the department at UConn. It's a really wonderful experience, regardless of
That
AP.
might attract more international students too.
Maybe.
If they knew that they could get college credits, get a leg up.
But other schools, other colleges do this, so it's not new, per se. But UConn seems to be the biggest fish around here.
Would they apply to Northwest Community College as well?
Well, isn't there partnership between Northwest?
Yeah, there is.
I mean, our Gilbert kids would have to go to Northwest, right?
Right.
I don't think Northwestern offers like an ECE thing to Gilbert
Okay.
High School teachers.
Okay.
So, you know, I can draft a list, take a look at your wishes, and then we can visit them. Do you want to
Yeah.
visit them at a curriculum committee?
Well, I think we could do that. I would also like to begin the process of conveying some of this information to Gilbert at the next Gilbert meeting, which is next Wednesday. And it's a lot to just throw at somebody all at once, but I think they should at least see this. These are the kinds of things we're talking about, and maybe there's a few things that we can immediately say, yeah, we can give you that information at this point in time. One of the things that Mr. Shagru has talked about on a number of occasions is what he described as a portrait of a graduate, which encompasses a lot of these things. What does a person leaving the Gilbert School have under their belt in terms of an educational experience, and how does it relate to where they want to be as an adult? And I think that's a really good perspective, because going back to your point about where are kids when they're 18, 20, 21, 22, I think that's really meaningful. It's hard to get that information, but I've always thought that longitudinally studying where people are in their lives speaks a lot about how well you prepared them for their lives. And unfortunately, that's data that kind of falls apart if you don't have everybody going to college or whatever. It's hard to get that data, but I think it's important. So I would like to propose the following, that I, and perhaps the rest of us who are a part of the board, may convey in a constructive way some of the concerns and interests that we have with the Gilbert School, and allow them to begin to digest that and respond to us in a way that would begin a dialogue. So my next question would be, would you like to propose a facilitated meeting between the two boards at some point?
Yes.
I'm hearing yeses?
Do we need to do a
Okay.
motion, or?
No, just
No,
a sense of it right now, but I think we can pursue that. That was Melanie's idea, and I think it's a good one.
Doug, I would like to also add into that, I know Nora's got some great technical stuff. I would like to see the same thing come back from Gilbert to us, as we're their primary feeder school, and know, what is it that we could do maybe different, better, add, subtract, whatever, to help them, support the kids going up so they're ready. And, we're not going on this train track and they're over here, try to pull together. My concern is far more social, emotional, structure, spirit, things like that. I mean, that's where my heart lies. I know other people have the academics down, but.
Yep.
Chris, I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because we have a responsibility to be able to send prepared, well-settled kids to Gilbert, and I think it's important that we hear on our end, if we have holes that they're realizing when they get to middle school, it's important that we reflect on that and how we can close those. Thank you for bringing that up.
I mean, the bridging has always been kind of tough because we don't have so many, like, at Pierce, we don't have so many, like, well, we have drama club and a few other things, but we don't, when you get up there, then all of a sudden it's like there's all these, you know, things that you can do in sports and activities, and it's kind of a lot, plus trying to figure out how do I fit in a middle school, high school. And so they get bombarded. And so even if it's just kind of letting them know a couple of years ahead, like, hey, these are some of the things you might be doing in 7th grade somewhere or high school somewhere, you know, whatever it might be, just to get them kind of a taste of it and excited for it. And maybe that sometimes can help to mentally focus, you know.
Well, we did meet at one point and talked about common goals a long time ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, and we began to talk about systemic things that, you know, we've got our own agenda, not agenda, but instructional goals, leadership goals, that sort of alignment was critical. When you talk about portrait of a graduate, which high schools have to talk about, it does trickle down. It should be pre-K through all the way up to be able to prepare the kids. And capstone is a course that they have to offer it in the collegiate, high school level.
Yep. That's a good point. I'm glad you reminded me of that. So what I'm really glad to hear is that there's a lot of interest in all these different topics, and it tells me that we understand that our relationship with Gilbert is not simply transactional. It's not, if we like the number, do whatever you want. It's, their program is important to us. We need to understand it so we can help support it. Maybe sometimes we won't support it and we'll let our voice be heard, but I think having that basic understanding going forward is important. So I've heard we'd like to have a facilitated meeting. I will propose that at the next TGS meeting, and we can go from there. But you're right, Nora, we did this about 4 or 5 years ago, and I think the mistake was we did it once and we thought we were done. We can't. It's got to be an ongoing dialogue between the two boards somehow or another. So I'm looking forward to that. So in that vein, my next question to this board is, do you feel that at this point you would like to begin to pursue a contract with Gilbert? You recall that we had asked Melanie and Greg to come together and propose a contract to us. They did that. There were some things that we felt were not sufficient, and we gave them feedback, but it sort of stopped right there. So I think there needs to be some board input. I don't think the two administrators are going to be able to do this on their own. That's my take on it. Although if people feel differently, I'm more than happy to hand it off to Melanie again. But is there an interest in pursuing a contract with the Gilbert School, long-term? And I'm not even going to say long, you know, it could be 2 years, whatever you think is appropriate.
I think it's appropriate for us to pursue a contract. I would, you know, as I've discussed with you, I would suggest 2 contracts, breaking down between the high school, one that's statutory based, and then one for our 7th and 8th graders, because there's different standards and requirements. I think everything stalled primarily because we had the DAS questions, which I think we got answered, and I don't know whether the Gilbert actually did sit down with DAS as they thought they were going to get their answers. So I'm all for trying to restart contract negotiations, and I do think that while the superintendents have done a good job, that it does have to move to a, you know, board involvement to fine-tune things and finalize it if possible.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Yay or nay? Indifferent?
I think we should go over the pros and cons again of what value.
Okay, there is a potential that the state could reimburse capital projects if we had a long-term contract. The timing is problematic, we know that. It has to be 10 years after the completion of a project where, in order to qualify for
The
reimbursement.
final payment on the grant, and there's no contract required for that. It's
Okay, that just has to be designated.
being the designated school for 10 years
Right.
after, in order not to trigger any potential clawback. And then the whole concept of the clawback is something that should be addressed in any sort of contract as well. And the responsibilities of both, you know, of the parties to the contract regarding, perpetuating the relationship, whether there's a contract or not. So there's a lot of areas that I think should be discussed. But I don't, my understanding from meeting with DAS is that the contract's not a deciding factor. It's the relationship, because they do a look back. So if you look at the last long-term contract that was entered into between Gilbert and Winchester, it was done because of capital improvement, but the payback didn't, the clawback period was still going on when we stopped having long-term contract. The contract period didn't cover that whole period, and it did not impact whatsoever whether or not there's a clawback. It was the ongoing relationship. So if we entered into a 10-year contract right now, and they got their final payment 12 years from now, and we're no longer in the relationship because we do build a school, whatever, they're still looking at the clawback. That's the problem, okay? So it's not the contract that's the issue, it's the ongoing relationship. The state's not gonna look at the contract as much as what actually occurs, because contracts can be broken.
Okay.
And one school, something could happen that changes the dynamic. So that's not the basis for a long-term contract. But then that's not the basis in my mind for even having contract negotiations. There's other factors that I think we need to look at. And I do think these conversations are best done in an executive session process than completely public.
Okay, so at this point, you're saying, let's look for a sense of the board, but let's not get into the details because
Exactly.
they touch on negotiating issues. Is that okay with you, Sandra? Right. So, show of hands, who would like to pursue a contract with Gilbert for some unspecified period of time? I see one,
To
two,
explore.
three.
To explore.
I'll play either way.
Wait, what are we voting?
Well, we're not voting, but
Explore.
are you interested in exploring contract, talking about contracts with Gilbert?
And doing it in an executive session.
An executive
An
session.
executive session.
But also,
Visiting the topic again.
but bear in mind, if there's a positive response here, I intended to go to the TGS board next week and ask if there was a similar feeling there. So that obviously it takes two people to party with it, so two groups.
Would the board like to make sure that there's an executive session on in April
Yes.
to discuss?
Yes, please.
So noted.
Okay, so I take that as a, let's look at it
That's right.
for the future.
Again. April, executive session.
So we do have some action items this evening.
Yes. Right, so we have two new hires, which are just acknowledgements from the board. One is for custodian, the second is for a custodian, and those are at the Pearson School. We also have as an action item, we have a childcare request leave for the 2022-2023 school year. So this is from Jackie McIlvaney. So she's our music teacher at the bachelor's school, and it's her formal request for a one-year childcare leave for the birth of her daughter, effective during the 22-23 school year till approximately August 29th, 2022 to June 13th, 2023, subject to calendar adjustments, as outlined in our Winchester Education Association contract, page 11. She would then plan on returning for the 22-20 or 23-24 school year. Just so you're aware, when a teacher does this and requests this, the board has to say yes or no to this. But know that the teacher is unpaid and unbenefited during this time period because it's considered a leave of absence. So
They have the right to their job afterwards, right?
they have a right to a job in the district that is,
Okay.
so it doesn't necessarily mean she's going back to her exact position.
Okay.
Dr. Dutton?
What is the impact of this move on the teaching material? For instance, if this lady leaves from teaching music, what's left to have music continue?
Yeah, so we'll have to, so she's going out on maternity leave soon, just because of some other stuff. She's due in May, I believe, so we're trying to get coverage for her, a long-term substitute position that will start in April. We have a job posted right now. And if the board approves, that person would be anticipated to stay on for the next school year to cover the music classes for the full school year.
So to answer my question, music would continue.
Yes, 100% music would continue. There'd be a certified staff member in the field of music that would take over.
Thank
Do
you.
we usually do a leave of absence that long, a whole year?
We had one this year, yes. It's part of their contractual benefits, if they would like.
Melanie, you said the long-term sub would be certified?
Yes, they'd be certified because they'd be over 41 days in the position, so they must be certified.
And after 41 days, you pay per diem?
No, they actually become part of the teachers' union,
Okay.
and then they're relieved of their duties. And obviously, we're upfront with them that it's a temporary position, but they would be paid on the teacher contract and become part of the union on day 42,
Gotcha.
provided they're certified, which they would be.
Prior to that, they're paying the sub rate?
They're paid as a long-term sub rate,
Long-term sub
yes.
rate, okay.
So since she's entitled to this, this is just an informational.
No, the board must approve or disapprove.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Oh, I mean, he's got questions.
I was just gonna ask, how long has she been a teacher with us?
I would say Rosie, maybe 8 years, 9 years. Jackie's been around a while.
Yes,
I would
she
say
has
8
been.
or, Rosie, sorry, Jackie. Sorry, Jackie's been with us for 8 or 9 years, I would say. 9, okay.
I would second that motion.
Any questions, discussion?
Yeah, I would like to require that we get baby visits at Board of Ed meetings.
I'm sure she'd be willing to share.
All right, all in favor of approving that? It's unanimous, I believe. Thank you.
All right, the next action item would be the board budget. So you know that last week I proposed a board budget of a 3.01% increase to the board. So that is up as an action item tonight. So it is my formal perusal to you and proposal that we would submit for a 3.01% increase in the appropriated budget, which represents an increase of $610,827.
Did you, I had asked you to break out, in our budget, the, other schools that we pay for, did you create that document?
Nancy's absent right now, and I need to get those numbers.
All right.
What was that number again, Melanie?
Oh, Cheryl, I think part of those numbers were in,
It's in a lump, it's in a other.
you would like it broken down by,
Well, I just wanted to clarify what our, others, what we pay other schools,
okay.
besides just the Gilbert line. I think it's more equitable if we see.
Just be cautious with that because not all of the funds that we pay are per pupil amount. Like a magnet school is a flat fee that's legislative driven. Last time I checked it, I think it was like $13,685 a student or something like that. So some of those are not per pupil, some of those are just fee based.
No, I understand. I just
So,
think that's something we should.
Yeah,
have a full
we can
understanding
absolutely
of.
do that, but I can have Nancy pull that information when she gets back.
What was that figure?
She's not allowed to go on vacation during budget.
Bad timing. Puts you in a bad spot.
Yeah. All right.
What was that overall figure? that you said?
610,827, which represents a 3.01% increase.
That was from the budget that came last week.
Right.
So I know we had some discussion about it last time. Are there any more questions, concerns, conversations we want to have about this? Yes, Dick?
I'd like to hear the motion. The one that we are going to be voting on.
Is that we approve a budget that represents a 3.01% increase over this operating year's budget, which amounts to $610,827.
827.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Is that your motion?
And that was the second.
No, I just wanted to
wanted
be
to-
sure that that number was on the floor here.
Okay.
And that was the second one, right, with the non-lapsing?
Yes, this is the second option that has the $128,000 contribution from the non-lapsing fund. The previous budget amount, I believe, was going to be without the contribution from the non-lapsing, $739,176, which was a 3.65% increase. But the board voted to move forward last time with the 3.01 with the contribution from the non-lapsing.
So the 3.01 is 610,827.
Yes.
That's,
Can I just can't find it here, but what was, Gilbert's increase on that? Was it-
610,827.
Oh,
because we got ours down to 0.
okay.
She said no, we got it down to 0.
So go to page 23.
In your budget book, yep, on
Yeah.
page 23, way at the bottom,
Okay.
the last two lines there, you see?
Oh, all right. Oh, I see it. Okay. Thank you. I was on the wrong page.
I'm waiting for comments, questions, motions.
What does the motion have to say? I think that's what Doc was saying.
That we move to approve a budget request. I believe
The superintendent's budget at the amount of $610,827, or a 3.01% increase.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, all against? Abstentions? 2, 3, 4 abstentions. Okay. Motion passes with 5 in favor, 4 abstentions. All right. New business. Policies for first read?
All right, so the first one that we have,
That's at the bottom, after policies. Barb, Rosie, Seamus, if you guys want to go before policies, feel free.
oh, come on. So the first one is on missions and goals. This was brought over from this is a very brief policy. This is just first read. It's just to set a general statement, and then the goals will be adopted and being worked on. We do board goals every year at our retreat that are reflected at the beginning of the booklet all the time. So this is just first read, so this just needs to move to second read. If anyone has any questions about this, and
She can't hear, Cheryl.
Hi, can you hear me better? Okay, so, anyone have any questions? This is just first read. Again, it's about board goals. Page 36.
36.
Can I ask a question on policies? How many reads are there before we like?
3. Two. So there's
What-
technically
what-
2 reads, so you have to go to committee first.
Right,
And the
that's-
committee has to say, we want to forward this to the board. Once it gets to the board level, there's a first read, and then there's a second read.
First
Then
read
if it
here.
passes the second
First committee
read,
and then
becomes
one
policy.
read at the
Okay,
board,
thank
and then
you.
the second read at the board.
I'm sure that was somewhere in our handbook.
So this is first read for the board, and then we vote on it next board meeting.
Okay.
So this is a good opportunity to look at it, see if there's any issues, any adjustments. I mean, this is a required policy, though. There are much lengthier ones, and this was the short version. Anyone have any questions? You want to move it to second read?
No, move on, I make a motion to move it to the second read.
Second that?
Second.
All in favor? this can go on the next, for second read on the next meeting. This is parent involvement. This is also first read. And again, there were options for this. It's required policy, but we had some choice as to options. This is a more generalized statement in order to avoid any complicated and confused expectations. So this clearly sets out that parents are supposed to be informed, we're supposed to engage, encourage their involvement, establish communication, seek input, and inform them on how they can assist in the children's learning. So it's a general statement, and the superintendent is to periodically, instead of saying how to do each of those things, it's just that we have to do those. So this is, does anyone have any questions, concerns regarding this one? Do I have a motion to move it to second read?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Okay, so let's move to second read, please. This is a second read, so we will be acting on this today. This is the non-discrimination. This again, is required policy. This is second read, right, Mel?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. This was really the only additional language in here from prior policy had to do more with protective hairstyles and just, ethnic traits and protecting those and making sure it's clearly understood that people cannot be discriminated against because of their ethnic traits or styles. Any discussion on this?
Is there any shorter version of this one?
This is,
That's the shorter
right.
version.
Yeah, this is it.
it's not that long, believe me, it could be longer. This is the
It's
shorter
like 2
version.
pages long, so. Make
Is
a,
that the 20-page printout that we had?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adopt the policy as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Is that,
Is that everybody?
no, okay, now it's everybody.
All right, that's
Aye.
unanimous, I think.
All right. Right, then we've got, that's all that. Then we've got, this is policy, sorry, I haven't been reading the numbers, but this is the next one, which has to do with union association access to district employees. This is a second read on this.
It's also statutorily driven.
Correct. There's nothing really we can do with this one.
Move to approve.
Anyone, do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? And unanimous. So that's approved. And the last one we have today is the school district medical advisor. Again, this is required policy. We do have a school district medical advisor, so we're on task here. Anyone have any discussion, any questions? Do I have a motion to?
I'll make a
adopt?
motion to approve it.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. All right, is that it? No?
You're done.
I think I'm done.
That's all.
Oh, vision screen, oh, that's the same thing, so the vision screen. Okay,
All right, one item left on the agenda, public comment.
Sole source.
Oh, I'm sorry. HB, you want to talk about that right now?
Yeah, so I wanted to put on the table for the board to consider, we need to move forward with the usage of our ESSER funds. So we need to make a move on getting ready to do this air conditioning project at Pearson School. So tonight before you, I'd like to know if you're willing to move forward with a sole source, since we've had one vendor that oversees our heating and HVAC at the Pearson School. This vendor has intimate knowledge of all of the locations of the materials in the building, all the ductwork, all the electrical lines. They also have written our heating program over there that runs the system, kind of the back end of the electronics behind our system. They've programmed it, they run it, they maintain. So I'm putting before the board tonight if you would like to move forward with a sole source to ensure that we have a vendor that is aligned with our current program that's going to be currently at Pearson and then also connected to Hinsdale.
There's no legal issues with doing that, right?
We are able to do the board is able to do a sole source based upon specific need when situations like this arise. Specifically, like when we had to do the keying of Hinsdale and Pearson, we wanted to make sure the vendors were aligned so that the products were aligned, the warranties were aligned, the servicing was aligned. So in situations like that, the board can use their prerogative of a sole source.
Elevator.
The elevator, yes.
And this is the gentleman that we were online, I think, meeting, and he talked to us and
Yeah.
gave
Yes.
us presentations, and we've talked about this, so it's not.
Now,
Did he give us a quote?
So we can't put the quote number out there, so the quote would have to come before the board. The board would have to make an action on the presented official quote once it's obtained. The board can have their prerogative with that vote at the time, but I can't put the number out there today because if the board were to go out to bid, his bid number would be public knowledge before that process, which would not make it a fair and equitable process.
It's like what we did with the thing we were talking about adding over at Hinsdale, the barn. And so we said, okay, we'll go with that company or whatever. And then they came back with the numbers, and then we were able to do it. What if we do the concrete? What if,
But if we do sole source, we're not committing to a certain price tag right now on this.
The price would need to be approved by the board.
Doc had a question.
You worked with this person or firm?
This person has been serving our district since I've been here in 2017, and before that, I know he was servicing areas of our district too.
Have you any reason to think that this is a bad idea?
So I can tell you at this point, he has remedied all of our heating, ventilation issues at the Pearson School. We had some issues with the vendor that we had done some upgrades with. He's rewritten his entire program, and I have not, knock on wood, had a teacher complaint since he's fixed the issues going on over there.
Yes.
So, teachers happy makes for a happy superintendent, so.
Just one other piece of background information. Not too long ago, Melanie asked the architectural firm that's doing the Hinsdale project, Silver Pezzicelli, to examine the HVAC situation at Pearson and give us some options, not hard quotes, but estimated costs going in different directions of how we might achieve it for HVAC. And I think their estimates, if you guys probably remember, they were the neighborhood of $6 to $9 million. And when Mr. Mahoney came here, he was presenting. Delaney, sorry.
Delaney.
Mr. Delaney came here, his numbers were a fraction of those costs. So that's encouraging for me.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to approve sole source.
Second.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns?
This means, basically we're saying he's gonna give us a number, we're gonna be voting on that now. That doesn't mean we can't be like, oh, we don't like that, and we're gonna look at something in the future.
No, but it does mean that, like, we're gonna move forward with putting his quote price out there in a public manner, and
And have we decided that this was gonna be like the split system compared to the other,
the mini ducts, yes.
the mini ducts?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what this would be moving forward with, is that process he spoke
Mini
to us about.
splits,
Yes,
Ductless mini
yes,
splits.
yes.
Roof,
And,
yeah.
and we're sure that that's covered by the grant.
100%, yes. And we have all of the funds available and will not need to go to the town in any capacity. The other piece is, I have to still determine with this new legislation around potential reimbursement for HVAC work, if usage of ESSER funds is reimbursable. I'm not sure if it's going to be a reimbursable cost because it's a federal grant. So I'm not sure how that works, but I'm gonna check that out and I'll have that before the board when we vote next time.
Thank you.
We had a motion and a second, all in favor? Okay, it looks like that's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
No, we got a public comment. Steve, would you like to address the board?
As a matter of fact, I would like to say a few words. Thank you.
You have to read your thing at first. You gotta read that whole thing.
I think we heard it before. You heard it before, right, Steve?
For your record, Steve Sedlak, 103 Indian Meadow Drive. And I don't know if you all know, but I'm the liaison to the board from the selectmen. So I come to your meetings and want to applaud your work. You're an effective group right now. I saw the meeting a month ago and thought that you handled that real well, Doug, and that it was an efficient, fair meeting and work got done. I like your style of involving people.
Thank you.
And Mel, I'd like to congratulate you and the district on graduating from Alliance. I mean,
Thank you.
That's no small task. And I think anyone who's in education at all realizes that it's a road to go down, and you're in a good place right now. That's the good news. And what I'd like to say to you is that when you present information to the public at the hearing on the 28th, if you can get the selectmen on board earlier by, I don't know if it'll be handouts or anything, but, most of us tend to be pretty visual people. So what we were talking about tonight in terms of what it means to be the graduate status with Alliance, and the 5-year period, and how the ratio changes.
Yes.
That's important for the selectmen to know that, and, be very clear on that. Because the town has got a lot of big issues that we're looking at right now. I'm glad Hinsdale is coming right along, and we're retiring some debt service, and so we got a break there in terms of financing the Hinsdale project. But the town has been talking about a roads project to the tune of $8.3 million, which will require bonding. And so over the last several years, the public has been fairly quiet in budget deliberations. They've been pretty pleased that we've been able to keep things fairly stable and, very few tax increases. But we expect there to be a lot of interest this year as we start talking about the kinds of numbers that we'll be talking about. And on top of that, who knew back 6 months ago when we started the budget process that there'd be a war going on and that inflation would be, going through the roof. And so it's going to be a hard sell for that reason as well this year. So again, my plea is you try to get the selectmen on board by as much material as you can get to us through Josh ahead of time. That would be very important.
Be happy to provide all that to you.
Yeah, good.
And Mr. Sedlak, I'm also always willing to come speak at the Board of Selectmen meeting if it's helpful to kind of walk them through the materials ahead of time,
Yeah,
if
well,
that's
let's see,
something you're open to.
Your submission is March 15th, which is next week.
Yes.
And our next meeting is the 21st.
Okay.
So I don't know if, have you had any conversation with Josh to get yourself invited to that meeting? That would be a good thing.
On the 21st?
Yes,
I have not, but I'm meeting with him Thursday.
that would be a good
All right.
topic to discuss.
Certainly.
Is there a meeting on the 15th, or just a submission of paperwork?
Submission of paperwork.
Okay.
Steve, do you know when the budget meetings take place? When are they scheduled for the town to have?
The timeline, the selectmen's budget will be discussed the week after the 28th, whatever date that is in April. Let's see, what is that, April what? The first Monday in April.
First Monday in April is the 4th.
Oh, we gotta get out of March here. Let me just check that. Yes, the board, your budget hearing is on the 28th. The selectmen will do the 4th, and that's all that's scheduled now. There will be one larger hearing sometime in April before the final adoption of the budget. But come to the selectmen's meeting on the 4th if you'd like to hear some of our discussion. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you for coming, Steve.
Thank you.
I always enjoy a night out.
Motion to adjourn.
Hold on, guys, let me turn off the television. Oh, I've been in that chair for way too long.
Oh, yeah, it's not complicated.
Can't stand.
It's been the quickest meeting since we've been here.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Very